Yeah, well, in this discussion, we're just going to be looking at the doctrine of Balaam, and because many different views of what that actually is, and we're just going to look at the different passages where that is taught, or where it alludes to the doctrine of Balaam. Because, like in Peter, you have the way of Balaam, in Jude, you have the error of Balaam, and in Revelation, you have the term, the doctrine of Balaam. So, what do you reckon? Should we look at Revelation first?
Okay, shall we read the whole letter to Pergamos?
Yeah, okay.
So that's Revelation 2, and starting in verse 12.
Is it 12, yeah? Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And it says, I've got the New King James, it says, "And to the angel of the church in Pergamos write, These things says he who has the sharp, two-edged sword. I know your works, and where you dwell, where Satan's throne is. And you hold fast to my name, and did not deny my faith, even in the days in which Antipas was my faithful martyr, who was killed among you, where Satan dwells. But I have a few things against you, because you have there those who hold the doctrine of Balaam, who taught Balak to put a stumbling block before the children of Israel, to eat things sacrificed to idols, and to commit sexual immorality. Thus you also have those who hold the doctrine of the Nicolaitans, which thing I hate. Repent, or else I will come to you quickly, and will fight against them with the sword of my mouth. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. To him who overcomes, I will give some of the hidden manna to eat, and I will give him a white stone, and on the stone a new name written which no one knows except him who receives it."
Yeah. So it's interesting. So they're obviously there, isn't it? The doctrine of Balaam is it's connected to the Nicolaitans. It says in the same way. In the same way, you also have those who hold to the teaching of the Nicolaitans, and in that context, is about them being seduced into idolatry and sexual immorality. But yeah, I think to understand the doctrine of Balaam properly, we have to look into the Old Testament, of Numbers, to understand what that is, what Balaam did, and Balak. Because notice also here it says, and Balak as well. It's mentioned Jesus mentioned Balak's name too, So in a way you could say the doctrine of Balaam and Balak there, because Balak was the instigator, wasn't he? He was the motivator behind it.
Was he one of the leaders in Moab?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and he wanted to. He was scared of the Israelites. He heard that about Israelites destroying all the other enemies.
Yeah.
And he wanted to sort of come up with a plan
before that happens to him as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he knew that he couldn't physically defeat the Israelites because they just defeated right before him King Og, and they defeated the Canaanites and all these other armies, and then so he's thinking, right, I'll get Balaam to curse Israel, because Balaam had a reputation of being like a seer who blessed or cursed. So what do you think? Should we look at?
Yeah, Numbers 25 or start in 20.
We could just go for bits. I mean, it's from 22 to 26. And we don't have to read all that though. Obviously, that's way too much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean. Yeah, I mean. I think there some important things of it is Numbers 22, where Balak comes to Balaam and he says, and where is it? In verse 6, it says, Balak said to him, Balaam, "Look, a people has come out of Egypt. They cover the surface of the land and are living right across from me. Please come and put a curse on these people for me, because they are more powerful than I am. I may be able to defeat them and drive them out of the land. For I know that those you bless are blessed, and those you curse are cursed." So he had a reputation. But then I think what's important is what Balaam was motivated by, for understanding the doctrine of Balaam.
Yeah.
Because the New Testament calls him And Peter, like, he loved the wages of iniquity and greed. Jude talks about his heart it was greedy, basically, isn't it? Like, but then Numbers 22, verse 12, it said, then God said to Balaam, you are not to go with them, talking about the Moabite kings. You are not to curse this people, for they are blessed. But then Balaam goes with them. He disobeys that, like, because he's motivated by greed. And then they come to him again. And then if you go right down to, then God sort of permits them to go and say, okay, since you're going, even though it's like God's permissible will there, because he's already said, and Balaam's defied it. He's got his mind made up, trying to manipulate God and trying to see if there's a way that God can come round to his way of thinking, instead of him come round to God's way of thinking. Yeah. And then, where is it? 22 verse. Where is it?
Is this with the donkey?
Yeah, but the part where it talks about, that's right, just touch on that bit, and it goes, then the elders of, on 22:7, the elders of Moab and Midian departed with the fees of divination in hand. Okay. So that's interesting, because that's what's motivating them, the fees of divination, the money. And then, look at the rewards that it was promised. They came to Balaam and said, let nothing keep you from coming to me, for I will give you great honor if you do what you ask. So that, I think this is essential to understanding the doctrine of Balaam, is first of all what he was motivated by, He was motivated by great honor, like wanting power, like Simon the sorcerer, and wealth, money. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's right. And in the letter of Jude, it specifically links Balaam with greed and money. In Jude 11, he speaks about people who have gone in the way of Cain and have run greedily in the error of Balaam for profit and perished in the rebellion of Korah. So there's three characters there, and with Balaam it specifically says it's because of greed and profit. So that's the motivation behind it.
Because of greed and profit. And it's interesting, in Jude also, how like Revelation, it links them to the living thing. The teachers are basically teaching Christians to live how they want. Sexual immorality, like sin, like to live in sin and still call himself a believer. That's what that's the idea, I think, with the doctrine of Balaam there, is, they're like today, how some of the hyper grace teachings, where they teach people that similar to the Gnosticism, you could do what you want with your body type of thing, right? You can commit acts of sin. So that's basically normalizing sin, that like these teachers are doing, but the teachers themselves motivated by greed and what they could get out of it, position, power. But their teachings itself are normalizing sin, putting a stumbling block, like Balaam did.
Was it because they thought that only spiritual things were important, so it doesn't matter what you do with your body?
Yeah, that's what the Gnostics thought. Yeah, and I think you could connect,
because it speaks about eating things sacrificed to idols as well, which is a physical act.
In Jude and
Revelation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's associated with idolatry. With idolatry, there was about the connection with idolatry, and that's interesting too. Like how Balaam infiltrates from within. Like Jude, it says certain people have crept in unaware. Verse 4. For certain people, they have come in by stealth. They've crept in unaware, and they are ungodly, turning the grace of God into sensuality and denying Jesus Christ, our only Master and Lord. And that's exactly what Balaam did. He infiltrated the Israelite camp. Because I think an interesting thing with Balaam is how God intercepts his trying to curse, so he blesses. God intercepts all those curses.
Oh yeah.
And
Numbers.
Yeah, he intercepts all those curses. And he and then after, you'd think what Balaam saw with the donkey, and God had mercy by putting the donkey as a hindrance. Yeah. He didn't just kill him straight out and out. He said if it wasn't for that donkey there, he would have just killed him. But, hoping Balaam would turn back, because the donkey even had more sense. I think that's
the donkey saw the angel of the Lord.
The donkey saw the angel of the Lord.
I thought it's interesting how it describes the angel of the Lord with a sword in his hand. And in the letter in Revelation, it says he'll come at you with a sword.
Yeah.
Those who follow the teaching of Balaam.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. That's a good point, actually. Yeah, in Revelation 2. In Revelation 2, the description of Christ. Because the description of Christ in all those churches has an impact on the actual situation of the church, doesn't it? Like, thus says the one who has the sharp double-edged sword, I know where you live, where Satan's throne is. Yeah, that's real. I think there is a link there, and Satan's throne too, because Satan's throne in Pergamum is basically, started off being for the Greeks, the Greek god Zeus and things at the temple of Zeus, but then then the emperor Caesar worship, but it also connects it with Balaam, because what Balaam did was real satanic. How he infiltrates, like after all those curses, after he couldn't curse them, you'd thought, and after seeing the donkey talk and all that, you thought that maybe Balaam might repent then and see that the Lord is working and intercepting.
Yeah.
But he actually doesn't, and instead he where is it? It says after that, it goes, now I'm 24:14. Now I'm going back to my people, but first let me advise you what these people will do to your people in the future. So Balaam's advice there, because if you look in, where is it? Deuteronomy and Numbers 30:16, I think. Is it 30:16? Oh no, 31:16. Sorry, 31:15 and 16. It goes, yet they are the ones who, at Balaam's advice, incited the Israelites to unfaithfulness against the Lord in the Peor incident, so that the plague came against them. So.
Yeah, that's in Numbers 25, isn't it? When the
exactly,
seduction.
Yeah, Numbers 25. Should we read a bit of that?
Okay, yeah.
Because this is interesting for the doctrine of Balaam, because it's like how he infiltrates the camp from within. How he just says to Balak, right, let me advise you on how to destroy these people. Like, since God won't let me curse them, I'm going to think of a way for them to curse themselves, to put themselves under the curse of God, which is really satanic. That's why it's connected to the throne of Satan there, which is really like the devil, has got two modes in Revelation 12, the dragon and the serpent. And you know how the dragon mode was in all the persecutions Israel just got before that but they defeated when the dragon came at them in the form of the Canaanites, tried to attack them. They destroyed the Canaanites. When the dragon came at them with King Og and his armies, they attacked them, destroyed them. But when Balaam came at them with a serpent mode and infiltrated within, like Jews crept in unawares, they actually managed to achieve their goal there, Yeah, so chapter 25. Or should we just read from where do you think?
Just read the first few verses.
Yeah.
Says, now Israel remained in Acacia Grove, and the people began to commit harlotry with the women of Moab. They invited the people to the sacrifices of their gods, and the people ate and bowed down to their gods. So Israel was joined to Baal of Peor, and the anger of the Lord was aroused against Israel. And the Lord said to Moses, take all the leaders of the people and hang the offenders before the Lord out in the sun, that the fierce anger of the Lord may turn away from Israel. So Moses said to the judges of Israel, every one of you kill his men who were joined to Baal of Peor. And indeed, one of the children of Israel came and presented to his brethren a Midianite woman in the sight of Moses and in the sight of all the congregation of the children of Israel, who were weeping at the door of the tabernacle of meeting. Now when Phinehas the son of Eleazar the son of Aaron the priest saw it, he rose from among the congregation and took a javelin in his hand, and he went after the man of Israel into the tent and thrust both of them through. the man of Israel and the woman through her body. So the plague was stopped among the children of Israel, and those who died in the plague were 24,000.
Yeah.
That's amazing that one of them was so brazen about it that he actually presented this lady in front of Moses and the whole people.
And I think that's a very important thing for the doctrine of Balaam too, because that's like embodies the kind of corrupt teachings of the doctrine of Balaam. You know how they've already infiltrated the camp, but then got so brazen about it, so openly in sin about it, sort of thing, that he's
it's like showing it off.
Yeah, he's showing it off. Like he's like, you know, there's these and that's like those false teachers again in Jude. It says they caroused in the daytime. You know, they were brazen about it. They you know, defiled the flesh with unrepentantly, you know, and they were teaching others to live the same way.
Yeah.
You know, with no regard for the keeping the laws of God, for, you know, with no regard for pleasing God or no regard for holy living.
Yeah.
You know, we're just out and out teaching open sin, sexual immorality, and by implication idolatry. You know, sort of things. So I think as we sort of read all that, we can see like the doctrine of Balaam unfold, the pattern of it, like, you know, that people creeping within the church, infiltrating within the church, and then teaching open sin as something normal, you know, sort of thing. Teaching compromise with the world, open sin, idolatry, all these things, and sexual immorality as a normal way of life. And you can see that today, you know, and many churches, like, they teach, like, you know, it's okay to live how you please as a Christian, you know, sort of thing. It's okay to, like, do what you want, you know. What do you think? You reckon it's you can see that today?
Yeah, I think you can see many examples of that around today in the church, where people are not careful in how they walk, and they profess Christ with their mouths, but doesn't always match up with their lives. So I suppose it's about compromise with the world.
Yeah, big time. And it's, I think it's important that it's not ignorance as well. This is willful disobedience.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like ignorantly embracing some pagan things or something, right? It's about willful disobedience. It's about what they're doing and what they're teaching.
Yeah.
You know, and the doctrine of Balaam, what they're doing and what they're teaching. Not, it's you know, I think it definitely is about that.
Yeah, but they had a lot of good stuff said about them as well, didn't they, in Pergamos?
Yeah, they did,
They were faithful even when there was people being killed there.
Yeah.
But then that doesn't counteract the negative of this doctrine of Balaam.
No. And notice how the good stuff is said first, and wasn't it like in...
Yeah, it says, I know your works.
Yeah, your faithfulness, your love, your service, your endurance. And I think what's interesting as well there in that church where the doctrine of Balaam is at, is how Antipas, the faithful witness, is presented in contrast to those teaching the doctrine of Balaam and those following it. It's like some are being faithful to the word of God and some aren't.
Yeah.
He's like the contrast, like the, you know, he's like someone that's faithful, and the doctrine of Balaam, people teaching the doctrine of Balaam are teaching people to become unfaithful in their practice, unfaithful, and he's someone that was holding fast to the word of God in faithfulness, you know. And then there's another one in Peter about Balaam.
Yeah, 2 Peter 2.
Yeah, 2 Peter 2. Which is also connects doctrine of Balaam to apostasy. You know, to apostasy, that those who have gone astray and teaching others to go astray. You know, because I think apostasy is important. It's different from backsliding. And apostasy is that people are still professing the faith from within, but they're teaching others to turn away from the sound doctrine, from the sound truth, and practice, you know?
Yeah.
And 2 Peter 2:14, it says, they have eyes full of adultery that never cease from sin. This is an important bit. They seduce, because that's what the doctrine of Balaam's all about, spiritual seduction. They seduce, you know, they seduce. This is exactly what Balaam did with the Moabite woman, seduced them into turning away from God. This is what these false apostles are doing, seducing the Christians to turn away from the truth. You know, it says they seduce unstable people, and this is an important thing for the doctrine of Balaam too, having hearts trained in greed. Because Balaam was all about greed. He was the fee for divination. He wanted the wages of unrighteousness. You know, and then it goes, children under a curse. They have gone astray by abandoning the straight path and have followed the path of Balaam, who loved the wages of wickedness. That's an interesting thing too, abandoning the straight path. Because you know when, in Numbers again, right? And the donkey situation. In the donkey situation, it's the donkey situation. It talks, the angel of the Lord went ahead and he stood in the narrow place where there was no room to turn to the left or the right, you know. And when the donkey saw the angel of the Lord, he crouched down under Balaam, so he became furious and beat the donkey with his stick. So the donkey actually, and it says about the donkey saw the angel of the Lord, and he didn't. Balaam didn't. And think of all that in Jude and 2 Peter, the unreasoning animals. It uses the unreasoning to say that actually these teachers and Balaam were worse than animals.
Yeah.
The animals were more sensible than them.
Well, in Peter, it describes him as being mad, isn't it?
The madness
of the prophet. So
the madness of the prophet.
Even the donkey was thinking clearer than he was.
Yeah, that's a really important point. Yeah, sorry, I forgot to read up to that, but that's really important actually. When it says in 2 Peter, after he loved the wages of and wickedness, it says, but received a rebuke for his lawlessness, a speechless donkey with a human voice, and restrained the prophet's madness. That's really interesting because he was irrational. Balaam, because it says Balaam was, he got this divine revelation. He got these true prophecies, even though he was a pagan prophet. Yeah. God revealed this revelation to him, and he gave this amazing prophecy about the coming of Christ, the Antichrist even, and the restoration of Israel, everything in this amazing prophecy, and how and he saw firsthand how God stopped him from cursing Israel. He saw the miracle of God. He saw all these miraculous things, but yet his heart was still motivated by greed. Yet he still wanted to be, he was still determined, more stubborn than the donkey, determined to get what he wanted, the honor that he was promised by Balak. So that was more important than God, than the revelation of God. And that's madness. Yeah. That's absolute madness. That's why, that's why, and it talks about that, how the donkey saw, but he didn't. How the donkey trying to reason with him, isn't it? Like the donkey trying to reason with Balaam. You know, the donkey stopped, didn't want to go any further. Balaam wanted to keep going. Why have you stopped? Sort of thing, you know. And so that's an important part, I think, for understanding all of this with the doctrine of Balaam, is that part about the madness, That's
got to be a humbling experience to be corrected by a donkey.
Yeah, real humbling. Yeah. But he didn't get humble from it.
No.
This is the thing. He didn't get humble from it, you know? So, I mean, what other passages can you think of that might, come into this whole thing of understanding the doctrine of Balaam?
That speak about spiritual seduction.
Yeah, I mean, there's the 1 Corinthians 10. Well, we haven't looked at that one actually. Yeah, 1 Corinthians 10 as the outcome of that whole incident, you know, with Balaam. you know.
The Church of Corinth, they were into that sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly, yeah, and to loose living. But at that point, they didn't have, they later had false apostles that were teaching things like that. But they themselves were into like practicing sexual immorality and everything, you know, normalizing sin. Because do you think it's fair to say that part of the doctrine of Balaam is normalizing sin?
Yeah.
You know, because that's kind of what it looks like. That's what Balaam had got the Israelites to do with the Midianite woman.
Yeah.
No, Moabite woman, sorry. You know, it got them to prostitute think of how wicked that is too. That they prostituted their own daughters and mothers just because they hated Israel so much.
Yeah.
Right? They were willing to traffic their daughters, to prostitute them out to Israelite men, like just so they could infiltrate and deceive Israel, just so they could curse them. You know, they sold out their own woman, their own, like, you know, they pimped them out, basically, you know. But yeah, 1 Corinthians 10, on chapter, on verse,
flee from idolatry.
Yeah, and I think verse 6 is specifically referring to the Balaam incident, right? To the outcome with the Moabite woman, with the men, how they turned away from God, and how they were seduced into it, to idolatry. You know. Yeah, when it says, now these things took place as examples for us, which is real interesting, so that we will not desire evil things as they did. It says, don't become idolaters as some of them were, as it is written. The people sat down to eat and drink and got up to play. And let us not commit sexual immorality as some of them did. And a single day, 23,000 people died. You see, that was the outcome of the Balaam's, when he got Israelites to curse themselves. Yeah. 24,000.
That's definitely a reference to that period.
Yeah, that is, because 24,000 fell, but 23,000 in one day. Overall, it was 24,000, but 23 in one day. Yeah, that is, and let us not test Christ as some of them did, you know. And it says that what's so important here, that these things happen to them as examples, you know, written for our instruction. So we got to watch out, you know, for people infiltrating churches, teaching the doctrine of Balaam, normalizing sin.
Yeah.
And, you know, and
it's not something we should tolerate.
No, it's, and this is another thing too, like, because Christ hates that doctrine as well, like the doctrine of associated with the Nicolaitans too, where he says in Ephesus, you know, in Ephesus, when he says that he hates the practice of the Nicolaitans. And I think that's very interesting, how the Nicolaitans in Pergamum is associated with the doctrine of Balaam in a very strong way, isn't it? It says, in the same way you have those who hold to the teaching of the Nicolaitans, right? So whatever exactly the Nicolaitans is, they were also teaching the doctrine of Balaam. They were, you know, sort of thing.
Do we know for sure what that is, the doctrine of the Nicolaitans?
There's different views on it. I don't think anybody can actually be dogmatic, though, to be honest. I mean, what verse is it? I'll just look up what a church father might say on it, because I've got these.
Okay.
I bought this 29 volumes of church father commentary.
Oh.
It's quite interesting.
That's Revelation 2:15.
Revelation 2:15. Right. Okay, I'll just see what one of the church fathers says on this. It says, so who's church? This is a guy called Bede, B-E-D-E. I don't know all the names, right? It says, the Nicolaitans received their name from the deacon Nicholas, of whom Clement of Alexandria reports that when he was reproached for jealousy of his very beautiful wife, he responded that whoever wanted might take her as wife. That's quite interesting, actually. Remember the Balaam and the, the Moabite woman? Yeah. They sold their daughters, their wives, to the Israelite men to take as wives, to infiltrate, to seduce the
So it's a
the
similar
Israelite
situation.
people. Yeah, very similar situation. This is an old church father, Clement of Alexandria, right? Clement of Alexandria. And that's actually, I didn't know that actually. It said reports that when he was reproached for jealousy of his very beautiful wife, he responded that whoever wanted might take her as wife. On account of this, the faithless taught that the apostles had permitted to everyone a promiscuous and communal intercourse with women. That's very interesting. That's real interesting. This is like the doctrine of Nicolaitans associating with the doctrine of Balaam. And it very much is in line with how the doctrine of Balaam how is presented in Balaam's advice that he gave the Israelites in Numbers. Very much in line with it. Yeah. It's like, and the fact is that it's that sort of treachery that Moses actually like equates with the doctrine of Balaam. Where is it? I could go back to 31:16, where he says, "Yet they are the ones at Balaam's advice incited the Israelites to unfaithfulness against the Lord." See what I mean? And 25:16, 25:16, the Lord told Moses, "Attack the Midianites and strike them dead, for they attacked you with treachery that they used against you in the Peor incident." So you see how that infiltration, that treachery, that was involved. That was that which led to the brazen act of an Israelite man bringing a Midianite woman to his relatives in the sight of the whole camp.
And it says her name, Cosby.
Cosby.
That's the lady.
Oh, that's the lady's name, yeah? Oh, right, yeah. Yeah, because the man's name is called Zimri, isn't it, in verse 14? Oh, yeah, that's right, yeah. It says the Midianite woman was called Cosby. Yeah. But that's like an embodiment of this whole thing.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Verse 6, an Israelite man, Zimri, came bringing a Midianite woman to his relatives in the sight of the whole camp, normalizing unfaithfulness, normalizing sexual immorality, sin, idolatry, and it very much echoes what this church father Clement of Alexandria wrote about the doctrine of Nicolaitans. Very much echoes it. I'll just read that once more, because bear in mind that situation. It goes, on account of this, the faithless taught that the apostles had permitted for everyone to be promiscuous and communal intercourse with women. See? Teaching sexual immorality and a stumbling block. In addition, the Nicolaitans are said to have proclaimed certain fabulous and virtually pagan ideas concerning the beginning of the world, and not to have kept their food separate from those who have been offered to idols. Which I guess kind of brings us to another sort of point, that it's not just that, but it's also things that corrupt the gospel, and idolatry corrupt a false representation of God as well. A false representation of the gospel in Christ. This could arguably all come under the doctrine of Balaam, things that corrupt. Because remember, the sexual immorality was basically a stepping stone to the idolatry. The real thing they wanted them to do was turn away from God. And they used the sexual immorality to get them to do that. With the Midianite woman. And then they ended up worshipping idols. And today it's more subtle. It's getting people by using, whether it's sexual immorality, whether it's ungodly living, but also whether it's corrupting the image of God that we have.
Because some people take the view that these letters in Revelation refer to specific periods of time throughout the history of the church, don't they? And so if people that take that view would equate the letter to Pergamos with that period of time when there were these various councils and different doctrines were being established, and perhaps you might say going off the rails on certain things. And this was when the church split and the Roman Catholic Church started, and we have Augustine and people like that.
And all the different forms of Gnosticism that were actually that were all around in the first, second centuries, but they gained momentum.
So would you say that this practice of going after this idolatry, does that lead on to then false belief? or is it the other way around? False belief leads on to wrong practice.
Well, I think it can be both, sort of thing. You know, okay, like the false, and in those times the false beliefs were attached to the Gnostic ideas. You know, like the Greek dualism. But then, it's what is Jesus actually rebuking them for in the letter? So it's basically what they do and what they teach. So it's doctrine and practice. You know, what they do and what they teach.
Because you could translate that word doctrine as teaching as well.
Yeah, you can, definitely.
The Greek is didache.
Yeah, you definitely can translate it teaching. It is that. Yeah, the teaching. So who taught? So you have a few things against you. You have some there hold to the teaching of Balaam, who taught Balak to place a stumbling block in front of the Israelites, to eat meat sacrificed to idols and to commit sexual immorality. In the same way, you have those who hold to the teaching of the Nicolaitans. So repent, otherwise I will come to you quickly and fight against them with the sword of my mouth. That's interesting, like the angel of the Lord did to Balaam with the sword. So that's a very good connection there. Yeah, I mean.
I read there was an interesting archaeological discovery made in the 60s, which gives an extra biblical evidence for Balaam. For his existence. It was in Jordan, and they found all these bits of plaster that had come off the wall of this temple, and it's from about 800 BC, and it's a passage from, it says it's from the book of Balaam, son of Beor.
Is that the Dear Allah?
Yeah. It doesn't refer to the events in Numbers.
Well, that's very interesting, though.
Interesting that it speaks about this character, gives extra biblical evidence for that he was a real prophet and a well-known one at that time.
No, that's actually very interesting. I'm glad you brought that up, because the Dear Allah is it's got a phrase and it sounds like Allah.
Not Dear Allah.
Yeah, Dear Allah. But as the phrase there, right, it says that talks about Baal as being a seer of the gods. And that he used to get visions at night from the gods, demons, in other words. That he was known for. But I think it actually speaks about him in a good way, though, and that, like, you know, given because it's a pagan book. Really.
Well, yeah, because this would have been from the pagan point of view, I suppose.
Maybe the Ammonites, I think they say, it could be related to the Ammonites. But yeah, there's an interesting phrase there. I remember reading that. It said he was a seer of the gods.
Of the gods, of the council of the gods, or something like that.
And he got a vision. He got visions at night from these gods, right?
Yeah.
But that makes it all the more very fascinating about Balaam's story of how he got a vision from the real God, from Yahweh. You know of how that happened, and how I think that another interesting thing that may relate to the doctrine of Balaam is this thing of him being a seer of the gods, ecumenical, of him being in touch with all different religions, of him being all things to all people, but infiltrating the Christian church with all this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But infiltrating the Christian church with all, because he was very much in touch with a demon worshipper, basically, of all these different gods, all these ancient Near East gods. He knew all their practices. That's why when it came to the Yahweh, he knew the 7 combinations. Then was when he does a sacrifice to him, and he puts where is it? Like this, God didn't even ask for that, right? But he knew this anyway, right?
Yeah.
He knew this anyway. He thought, well, yeah, I'll try to make God come around to my way of thinking. I'll do a Hebrew sacrifice. And that's
so he knew about all the different religions.
Yeah, he knew about all that's why it says he had a reputation for blessing and cursing people. You know, it was known all over the ancient Near East. That's why it's actually real important that you brought up that text. Because I forgot about that. That's a very.
I'd forgotten the name of it.
There's the Dear Allah, I think. D-E-I-R, I think. A-L-L-A. But I don't know if I pronounced it correctly though. But where's the bit where Balaam does? Yeah, see in chapter 23 it says, "Then Balaam said to Balak, 'Build me 7 altars and prepare 7 bulls and 7 rams for me.'" So he wanted to get in contact with the Hebrew God that way. So it's interesting how he knew this. He knew all that because he was a pagan prophet who originated somewhere near the Great Euphrates.
Yeah.
Which is another interesting thing. You think about this 4 fallen angels in Revelation in the Great Euphrates, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very demonic as well. Balaam, very a seer of the gods. That was.
Yeah.
You know?
And would you say that there's some religious practices that have come into the church that perhaps we shouldn't be getting involved with?
Yeah, I'll say there was many
Eastern practices and.
Very subtle,
Yeah.
and as well. Because I think with the doctrine of Balaam, one of the main things is straightforward: normalizing sin, right? And as a way of like it's okay for a Christian to be in sin. You could actually apply it to that thing. It's very much about what someone's doing and what someone's teaching, normalizing sin and greed for gain, for power, for position within churches, like Simon the Sorcerer type thing. But also there is that link with with other different religions, that ecumenical link as well. Like given what Balaam was, because if we want to get the clues for the doctrine of Balaam to also be in his character, in who he was, there's interesting clues in it, and how he was the link for all these. He was the go-to man for all these religious things and to bring them together, and to help them get into the camp of Israel, he was like the source of that sort of thing, and he's connected to Babylon. That's another interesting thing that there's because that really sort of helps understand the throne of Satan and as well, how he's connected to that in that passage,
in Pergamus.
Or even the satanic languages in the churches, you can argue there's part of it is just to remind us that the enemy is Satan against the church. It talks about the deep things of Satan, the synagogue of Satan, where Satan dwells, like the throne of Satan, And the throne of Satan in those days ended up being like the central, Roman imperial cult. Worship, of the Roman worship of the Roman emperor, which typifies the beast worship on the throne, in Revelation 13. But I think there's no coincidence how Balaam, the doctrine of Balaam, is connected to this. Is connected to it and help bring people to that throne. Because that's what he did. That's what he did. Yeah, can you think of any other sort of...
Well, I know we've already read Jude 11, but I think it's interesting how he picks out 3 specific characters from the Old Testament.
In Jude?
In Jude, verse 11, where he's talking about these false teachers or apostates, and he says they've gone in the way of Cain, then they've gone in the error of Balaam, and finally they perished in the rebellion of Korah. And so there seems to be perhaps a progression there with Cain, that you approach God on your own terms and you choose how you want to worship God, and then Balaam, you choose how you want to live, and then you end up in complete rebellion like Korah, and you don't want God's authority in any way. And then you end in destruction eventually.
Yeah, that's a really interesting way of looking at it, actually. Because there is that succession. I think he's done that on purpose.
Yeah, because there's loads of characters that he could have referenced, but he picks out these 3 specifically.
These three specifically, and they do seem to they follow after one. They are put in that order for a reason. The way of Cain, and plunged into Balaam's error. It's sort of like you're standing on the way of Cain, and from there you plunged into Balaam's error, and then you ended up getting swallowed up by the earth like Korah because of his rebellion, sort of thing, ended up in destruction. That's a very interesting way of seeing that.
So for people that are caught up in these things with teaching of Balaam, you've got to repent, otherwise you might end up like Korah.
Yeah, that's it. And I think, that's the different names for Balaam in the New Testament, like the doctrine of the teaching of Balaam, the error of Balaam, the prophet, and the way of Balaam, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it's all connected to apostasy, isn't it? Like all the New Testament instances connected to apostasy.
Yeah.
And, and it connects it to his greed, Balaam's error for profit. Yeah, what was it? Say that again about the way of Cain and a plunge into Balaam? Yeah.
Well, about how Cain, he came to God on his own terms.
Yeah, that's it. That's a good. Yeah, that's true.
Worshipped God in his own way without worrying about the right way to come. And then Balaam is about spiritual seduction and living in sin, and then you end up with Korah, who rebelled against the authority of Moses and was he swallowed up by the ground?
Yeah.
So there seems to be a progression with those three.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. And you can see other references to the character of Balaam, like is in the epistle, like shepherds who only look out after themselves, which he was all about that, right? It was all about gain, what he could gain out of it. He didn't care about anything else. That's why he was a freelance prophet. He wasn't connected to any type of like people group or anything. He was all about what he could get, all about his own ends,
Put the fees in his pocket and go on to the next place.
Yeah, basically he was basically just offer to the highest bidder, offering himself to the highest bidder. Yeah. Sort of thing. But then I think Balak is interesting though, because Balak, he had an anti-Israel agenda, right? He wanted to kill Israel any means. He wanted to get rid of them any means, right? So, even if it meant offering up his own woman, his own daughter, Yeah. So, you look at Balak as the motivator and Balaam as the means, sort of thing. And that's why I think it's significant Jesus brings Balak into the discussion of the teaching of Balaam, sort of thing. Yeah, can you think of any more that would fit this?
I don't know. I think what you read in 1 Corinthians 10, it gives us a good warning, because at the end it says, "Therefore let him who thinks he stands take heed lest he fall." That's in 1 Corinthians 10 verse 12.
Yeah, which is really important.
So that's perhaps a good warning to end on.
Yeah, that is a very good warning to end on, that,
Yeah.